Welcome, this is Josh Reeves with Mile High Church in Lakewood, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. For more information about our church, please visit our website, milehighchurch.org.
Continuing a series this morning, the topic is authentic intelligence. Today is about our source, remembering our source. And how many of us, when we were younger, heard, "You are what you eat"? Yes, and perhaps like me, you imagined yourself looking like a piece of broccoli and you dismissed that idea. We have to be careful with our young people when we give them metaphor and myth, especially if we mean it literally. You know, Joseph Campbell talks about an exchange between a young person and a fundamentalist, and the person is explaining that everything in the Bible is absolute fact, and the young person says, "Well, what about the dinosaurs?" "Well, there were no dinosaurs, but they found the bones." Right. So if it's not "you are what you eat" in this time of artificial intelligence and digital technology, perhaps we might consider "you are what you consume." You are what you consume. If you want to see your reflection these days, don't look in a mirror, look at your phone. When you get that notification of your usage time, I am 10% Facebook, 20% text message, 5% Instagram, 3% Van Morrison songs, 20% news. We can very much become what we consume. And I don't know about you, but I'd much rather be more into the mystic and less the five. Right? So you are what you eat, you are what you consume. How about you are what consumes you? That thing that politician said that drives me crazy. That mistake that everyone else has forgiven me for but myself. That person who has a negative perception of me. That nagging worry that won't go away. When we allow what consumes us to be our source, we become artificial ourselves and we lose who we are. Digital technology, it's being inspired by the people that are growing slot machines, where they used to have the lever, now they have a button so you bet more faster. You used to win just one way, but now you can win 100 different ways and never as much as what you put in. And it has this addictive quality to it, right? But I think what drives it even more is our uncomfort with the unknown. We are designed to live in this thing called the unknown, and it's a fact that there will always be more that you don't know than that you do. So we have a relationship with this thing, but we get anxious about it. So we take this anxiety, and in every free moment, we pull out these phones. Dr. Barry, can you put your phone away, by the way? Jeez, man. And we take that anxiety, and we put it into the phone, and it creates even more and more anxiety. I went through a rite of passage this week. I had my first colonoscopy. When the doctor says it's time to go within, it's a little different than how we mean it here at Mile High Church. And it wasn't routine. I had a test that triggered the need for it. And as an incredibly spiritually dialed in person, I did exactly what you would expect me to do. I totally freaked out. I got scared looking at that test. And I don't think it's abnormal when something happens in our life to immediately go to that sensational headline, to go to the worst possible circumstance. And we tell ourselves that, and we grapple with this thing called the unknown, and we worry, and it consumes us, and that worry and anxiety becomes us. And gratefully, it all just turned out fine. They said, "I'll see you in 10 years." But you go to that fear, and I even know this as a spiritual person. And what I've learned is when we get some sort of news that tells us of the unknown, it isn't best to immediately spiritually bypass and go to what we think the spiritual truth is. Sometimes it's best just to see the facts as they are, to be good journalists and not give a headline, but just to see the story that's there. And it's then that I've learned that I have a greater source, that there's a greater source of a divine presence that knows who I am and why I'm here, that loves me unconditionally, that has shown me over and over the grace and how supported I am. And I received great prayers. Even the person who took me is in the congregation today, so I'm very grateful to her. Henry Nouwen said, "The art of living is to enjoy what we can see and not complain about what remains in the dark. When we are able to take the next step with the trust that we will have enough light for the next step that follows, we can walk through life with joy and be surprised at how far we go. Let's rejoice in the little light we carry and not ask for the great beam that would take all the shadow away." The unknown is not as frightening as we think, because right in that invisible essence is the source of who we are. All of us here are so blessed because we know the sacred is our source, an unlimited source of love intelligence, of groundedness, of our connection with our mentors and our guiding lights. God is our source. But when we forget that, we allow the artificial intelligence that's out there to consume us. And we get lost in what it is in this era where news has become a kind of blood sport. News which has this habit of lifting and putting people up on pedestals just so they can tear them down. All of this othering that we see. We unfortunately associate more and more intimacy with artificial intelligence, something that by definition can never be intimate. And we engage with it to increase desire and wind up losing ourselves in the process. True crime is now an empire of entertainment. Talk about anxietizing, right? Cal Newport wrote a great book called Digital Minimalism, Choosing a Focused Life in a Noisy World. And being from Southern California, I just have to stop in awe for a moment for the name Cal Newport. And he does something really wise. He doesn't negate digital media. He doesn't negate artificial intelligence. It's a part of our lives, but we can control what our relationship with it is without allowing it to possess us, right? We can articulate what that is, and so he invites us into creating our own boundaries and rules with our technology in a way that serves us. And he invites us to start off by taking a 30-day break. I want to challenge you to consider that, to go on those apps on the phone, the Facebook, all the social media, and just delete them just for a while, for 30 days. He shares of a woman who engaged in this practice, and she said for the first couple of weeks, she could have told you what the weather was in 7 different countries. Because it's that habit. I'm in this free moment in the unknown. I need to go to the phone as opposed to feel my source and be balanced in it. During this break, we get to re-engage with authentic intelligence, what we called the 3 pillars of Mile High Church last week: poetry, nature, and rock and roll. Poetry, nature, rock and roll. These things that when we re-engage with them, we help ourselves realize, I don't need to escape my life, I need to find my life. I don't need to unplug, I need to plug in. I don't want to turn off, I want to turn on. And we reconnect with these incredible sources, and we discover, yes, I'm myself again. And once we've done this, we can return to our technology and redefine what it means to use it for what we want instead of allowing it to use us. Newport shares, then allow an optional technology back into your life at the end of the digital declutter. However, it must, 1, serve something you deeply value. Offering some benefit is not enough. 2, be the best way to use technology to serve this value. If it's not, replace it with something better. 3, have a role in your life that is constrained with a standard operating procedure that specifies when and how you use it. In other words, you get to tell technology and artificial intelligence what your boundaries are. Facebook, you exist for me on Sundays. where I will look at pictures and share pictures, but you are not a safe place for me to sometimes have deep or controversial conversations. You are not the source of my affection. Artificial intelligence, I will use you for gathering information and organizing my thoughts. I will not look to you for intimacy. I will not look to you to tell me who I am, because I already know and have and claim my source. Artificial intelligence, wonderful, but no exception for the authentic intelligence that connects us with our source and tells us who we are. Knowing that the divine is our source gives us an extra layer of awareness. It helps us know the world is round when there's so much consciousness out there that still thinks it's flat. Ernest Holmes pointed this out. He said, when everyone believed the world to be flat, they did not flatten the round world. When one person made up their mind that the world was really round, they did not resist the flat world because they knew there was no such world. They set out to sail around the world they knew to be round. Through his act of faith, they discovered the truth about the round world. The fear and superstition of others did not deter them. The accumulated experience of the race could not blind them. The belief that the unknown oceans were filled with monsters did not frighten them. They knew the world was round and they could sail around it. Not only do you know your source, but do you know this world that you live in? Do you know why you're here and why you came about? It exists in this authentic intelligence. The answers are already in the marrow of your bones. And as we have the courage to navigate this round world and not fall into the belief in a flat one, we can begin to get this life moving in a way that connects us and always keeps us close to our source. As the mystics say, it is nearer to us than our very breath, closer to you than your cell phone at all times. This divine good. You know, sometimes we make a distinction between capital R reality, spiritual reality, and the so-called real world of lowercase r reality. And it's important to remember that this is a distinction to make, but the truth is they're always one. Lowercase r reality is encased in uppercase R reality. It just doesn't exist at that consciousness anymore. And spiritual reality always exists in lowercase r reality. It's just that evolution that's calling us up to remember the truth of who we are. And when we live in that capital R reality thinking, we're seeing life wholly as opposed to partially. That's where the anxiety and the stress and the lack of want and everything that messes us up comes from. As we remember that wholeness, it helps us see and live our whole lives. A few other examples today of how we can move from artificial intelligence to authentic intelligence. We can move from just being consumed by artificial news to stepping into authentic learning. We can move from artificial connection to authentic friendship. And we can move from artificial eroticism to authentic romance. Normally I'd go those 1, 2, 3, but I can tell I piqued your interest, so we're going to start with the eroticism part. Artificial eroticism is this idea that what you desire is outside of you, that we'll never truly have it met, that we have to seek to have our desire met through whatever it looks like, whoever's affection it may be, whatever idea that we may have, and it's never truly ours. We get ourselves caught into trying to manipulate it into loving us, and even when it does, it's not the love we want. It's not the love we need, and we're left with a sense of emptiness. Authentic romance isn't about having eros for another person. It's about having eros for life itself. It's about loving your life so strongly that you realize it produces everything that you desire and that you need. And then if you meet someone who has the same eros for life that you do, then you can make some beautiful music together. Loving our lives is the most romantic thing that we can do. And when we do it, it begins to love us back. and we begin to create those relationships and experiences that feed and open our heart and help us to grow. Artificial news is important information that's given to us from a pre-appointed point of view. For some of us, we enjoy getting the point of view that's just our own, that's just the one that we want to hear. And then some of us like to get rivaled up, so we watch the point of view that we disagree with so that we can get angry. The other thing that artificial news does is it loves to lift people up so it can tear them down. Everyone is other, and we're either pushing people down so that we can feel better about ourselves or lifting them up so that they can be knocked down later, this kind of pedestal thinking. I actually read it on Facebook. It was an incredible piece by one of our practitioners named Melissa Berg. She's serving in the youth church this morning, but send my blessings to Melissa. And she wrote a great piece called When the Pedestal Falls. And it was in regard to spiritual leaders making terrible mistakes. It was in regards to politicians that may have let her down. It was in regards to people that she loved in her own life who made mistakes. And she was realizing in this piece that one of the mistakes that she perhaps was making was putting some of these folks on a pedestal in the first place. That her job, she realized, was to focus on herself. And she shares quite beautifully, here's the realization. I get peace of mind from alignment, not from the perfect leaders or institutions. I get it from treating people the way I want to be treated, from carrying my own sticks, staying in my own lane, watering my own garden, and speaking up when necessary. I don't need a pedestal anymore. Yay. I have what it takes to be my own influencer for the highest good. Maybe that was the lesson all along. Thank you, Melissa. Thomas Jefferson, speaking of someone who we put on a pedestal and have to remove down, when he was writing the Declaration of Independence and this idea of the pursuit of happiness, what he meant was the endless pursuit of learning. That endless pursuit of learning, not the artificial news, but that aspect of always committing ourselves to understanding history, to reading the classics, to always being committed to our own growth. And for him, the key to democracy was just that it's when we lose educating ourselves and ever growing, only hearing things that we want to hear or hearing things that we don't want to hear for whatever reason, that we lose that ability to all participate in our democracy together. Reading, watch as much news as you need to, but balance it with that history, those books, that understanding of the great individuals who have made our country what it is. And then lastly, move from artificial connections to authentic friendship. What is more important to you, to have 1,500 followers or one really good friend? To have 1,000 likes or one really good friend? I love social media because it helps me stay connected to people who I wouldn't still be connected with anyways. It's so great to see my crush from 5th grade share pictures of her grandchild. But the danger with having so many of these connections is we can forget the value of who is in our life right here and right now to engage with and be inspired with. Speaking of Carol Buxton this morning, our friends come at the right time. They come at the right time in our lives when we have something to learn, or someone who we're becoming, or something of value for us. Carol was a perfect example, like so many people who showed up at the right time with just what I needed, and if I would have met her weeks before, it may have not been the same kind of impactful relationship. Kristen Hawkins, a great minister in our movement and mentor of mine, she talks about us individuals being like circles. And there are these wonderful times in our lives where these circles connect and they intersect. And that's the joy of friendship and connection. But then there comes a time where sometimes our circles separate. And it doesn't mean we're not connected anymore. It simply means that our circles are doing the things that they need to do. And it's wonderful at times if they continue to come back together. But if we're filling our whole circles with everyone all the time, we might be missing out on those friendships that are available to us right now to give us that sense of meaning, purpose, resonance, and that authentic intelligence that helps us grow into being who we are. I love how Emerson put the miracle of friendship. He said, "I awoke this morning with devout thanksgiving for my friends, the old and the new. Shall I not call God the beautiful, who daily showeth himself so to me in his gifts? My friends have come to me unsought. The great God gave them to me." And he adds, "Friendship, like the immortality of the soul, is too good to be believed." I wish you today authentic learning. Find joy in the ever-expanding of your consciousness. I wish you today authentic romance. I wish that you fall in love with your life every day and let it fall in love back with you. And I wish you authentic friendship, the angelic, wonderful demonstration of the amazing characters that fill our lives who we would not be ourselves without. So moving into prayer this morning, I invite any of our incredible prayer practitioners to stand who are available for prayer after service. Knowing that the sacred is not only where I am, but it is as I am. A precious expression of divine love. I know this to be true of myself, and I know it to be the truth of everyone in this dome of consciousness, present physically here or somewhere else participating. That just as we are filled with the authentic intelligence of the God-inspired spirit of love, of harmony, of grace. That there is so much depth within us that we will never be able to know. Yet the joy of life is in the discovery, in the revelation, that we never have to discover the true self, but as we allow ourselves to be authentically who we are, it reveals itself in all things. We are revealers not only of who we are, but of the divine truths and the divine existence of the sacred in all aspects of our lives. May we not be frightened of it, but may we step fully and boldly with courage to realize that the very act of that courage demonstrates for us the truth that we are always safe and held in the embrace of that divine spirit. Honoring all those we love, all those who love us, I just simply know that we are divinely guided on our paths. We are never alone, even in the midst of our solitude. We know we are surrounded by that divine light. We let it into our bodies. We let it into our technologies. We allow it to be the truth of who we are wherever we go. And I know it is in a place of becoming and asserting itself right here and right now. And so it is. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. To make a donation, please visit milehighchurch.org.